I hope you've enjoyed the topic this week. If something offends us, even an important bodily member, our willingness to pluck or cut it out so that our whole body is not cast into hell, so to speak. Are we entirely willing and ready to remove everything that stands in the way of our true self and our destiny? It's a great question. It's one we live out our whole lives. We may have episodes where we go a very long time engaging in something, some place, some person, some activity, some delusion, some distraction that is delaying our destiny. It can never be permanently delayed. God loves us way too much, but we certainly can wander through the labyrinthine halls of time and space for a very long time before we get down to what's important. Sort of reminds me of I remember once back in the day in a sort of regular supermarket, back in the day when there were like little toy sections. I don't know if you remember that, but there were, there'd be like a little toy section, and there were cap guns and squirt guns and just a variety of little silly toys. And there was a child, toddler, sitting in front of it, and he was screaming his guts out, and his mom was walking by saying, "We've got to go, we've got to go." And she kind of gently picks him up by the arm and starts dragging him down the linoleum away from the toys that the child was absolutely um, hypnotized by, paralyzed by. And the child was screaming his bloody guts out because the most important thing in the universe was being torn away from him by an evil mother who clearly didn't understand his desires and his intentions and what was most important to him. Of course, he was 2.5 years old, and his mother understood that that toy was of no use whatsoever, and there was food at home, and there were other things to do that were good for him and good for the whole family. So, you know, how often have I been that child being torn away from something that's unbelievably important to me, that seemed like the most important thing in the world, and then, you know, whether it's an hour later or 18 months later, depending on my addiction and compulsion with it, that I'm restored to sanity. But each and every one of us has this capacity to really ask deeply what it is that's standing in the way of us living to our full destiny, bringing as much love and light and truth into ourselves and out into the world as possible. And this then will be our great adventure, won't it? We will all live out this adventure, and at the end of this lifetime, we'll have a review and we'll see how much we were the toddler, engrossed, engaged, paralyzed, and hypnotized by the shiny little object in front of us that seemed like the most important thing in the world, all the while missing um, the greatest potential of all, but not forever. Just there's plenty of time and space in this universe. It acts as a thick, gooey membrane that can separate us from the ever present love and ardor of God. I noticed this week when I asked myself, last week I plucked out a pretty big part of myself, and it hurt, but only for a little bit, surprisingly less than I thought. But there's always the next thing, of course. And so this week I realized it's listening to the news and how much that distorts and corrupts and damages me, and how unnecessary it is. I know something when something is addictive and compulsive when I can never get enough of it. It never satisfies. It only gets worse, never better, and I can't get enough of what I don't really need. And that's the case for me for the news. And yet, in the moment, it's so unbelievably adrenalizing and satisfying to have a look at the news and find the people that are insane and find the people that are blah, blah, blah. You get where I'm going. And so what I remembered is that I can listen to books on tape. So I decided to re-listen to Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. Can't recommend it enough. There's a miracle on every page. George Harrison gave a copy of it to everybody who visited him at his home later in life, as did Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs gave away the book at his funeral. Anyway, so I can listen to books on tape. If you need a book on tape, I have so many Audible credits. I will personally gift you, one of my Zoom listeners, a free copy of a book if you want. You let me know. Anyway, how are we distracting ourselves? How are we looking at shiny little ridiculous things in front of us and mistaking that little effect for the cause, the love, and the power of God that could come tsunamiing in a moment's notice, like Looney jumping on me from a cat tree? Anyway, I hope I've made some sense whatsoever and stimulated your ardor as you stimulate mine. And we'll see you tomorrow and we'll talk about it. Marcy, I'll give you a call. Bye, you guys.